We're going to talk now to Arlene Foster because a former soldier accused of killing a Londonderry teenager more than 50 years ago has died.
Yes, Daniel Hegarty was shot on the 31st of July 1972 during operations by the Army to reclaim no-go areas set up by Republican paramilitaries in towns across Northern Ireland.
Hegarty's family have accused the Public Prosecution Service of dragging out the legal cases, but who they said never really wanted to prosecute the former soldier.
Northern Ireland's Social Democratic and Labour Party leader, Colm Eastwood, said there had been institutional failings in the case and that it showed the UK government's strategy for dealing with legacy issues would not work.
Well, Arlene Foster, of course, is one of us here on GB News and the former First Minister of Northern Ireland. Arlene, this is very sad, isn't it? This gentleman died. We only know him as Soldier B, with these legal proceedings still hanging over him.
Yes, indeed. It's really good to be with you this morning. This is a very sad case overall. This was a young 15-year-old labourer who was shot in the early hours of July 31st, 1972. He was shot dead by a soldier. At the time, there was Operation Motorman going on in the Cregan area of Londonderry, a very febrile atmosphere. Republicans had taken over the area and the army had been sent in to deal with the unrest, and this young man was shot. This case was investigated by the Royal Military Police back in the 1970s. There was then an inquest which said that the youth had posed no risk and that he had been shot without warning. That led to an investigation opened again, and the Public Prosecution Service decided to prosecute a soldier known as Soldier B. They then decided not to go ahead with that prosecution in 2021 after another failed prosecution of two other soldiers. It's quite complicated, as you can hear, Andrew and Emily, but in August of this year, that decision not to go ahead with the prosecution was quashed by the Court of Appeal. So this old soldier has died with this prosecution hanging over him.
Well, you've been speaking to the victim of sexual abuse by an IRA man about the legacy, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been speaking to Maria Cahill, who has just published a book on her experience at the hands of the IRA. She was abused by an IRA man when she was just 16. And then the IRA decided that they would investigate this themselves. And she talks about that. But she talks about wider legacy issues as well, including the new legislation which has just gone through the House of Commons. And I think we'd see a little clip of that now.
They're relying on the cooperation of former paramilitaries to provide evidence or information to people who are nursing their hurt quietly at home, who have been bereaved or seriously injured as a result of the conflict there. If the IRA have gone, I don't believe they have, but Jerry Adams is arguing that they have. If they have gone and we follow the Republican movement's logic here, and there's no corporate way then of verifying anything anybody has been involved in, then no Republican will come forward in any legacy case to provide any meaningful information or resolution for anybody. And the British government have gone on a huge exercise here, which really has protected its own army veterans, I think. I mean, that was obviously the reason that the legislation was brought in, because they felt it was unfair. And I think what they have done, quite stupidly in my view, is put their own army veterans now on a par with the IRA members who were fighting them.
Is she right about that, Arlene?
Essentially what Maria Cahill... Yeah. Well, I think essentially what she's saying is that the veterans have been put on a par with so-called IRA veterans, criminals who conducted a campaign of violence and terror in Northern Ireland and indeed across the UK for over 30 years. What this legislation does is it says that if you come forward and tell the victim's family what happened in their particular case, then you won't face prosecution. So whether you're a veteran, and the legislation was put in place to protect veterans, or whether you're someone who conducted a heinous crime like the Enniskillen bomb, then if you come forward and tell your case, you'll be given an amnesty. So essentially what Maria Cahill is saying is that we're putting veterans, people who went out to protect society, on the same level as IRA men.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Arlene. That's Arlene Foster, former First Minister of Northern Ireland, and of course, the GB News. Did you have something?
No, I was going to say we can, of course, see the full interview this weekend with Arlene.
Yes, we can. We can indeed.